Let's just jump straight into it. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the hidden mechanics of human prosperity. We're going to unpack Adam Smith's absolute masterpiece from the 18th century, The Wealth of Nations. It's an incredible journey that takes us all the way from the surprisingly complex world of making everyday pins, right up to the grand, overarching concept of universal wealth.
But to get us started, I want you to chew on this massive economic paradox. Think about water. It's absolutely crucial, literally keeping you alive right now, yet it costs next to nothing. On the flip side, you have a diamond. It's completely useless for keeping you alive, but it commands an absolute fortune. Well, stick with me because by the end of today's explainer, we are going to completely unravel the mechanics behind this mystery using the bedrock of human economics.
Part 1. The power of divided labor. You see, to truly grasp the big macro picture, we actually have to start incredibly small. And Adam Smith gives us this brilliant, tangible example to kick things off. A tiny, totally unremarkable room where guys are making pins.
The contrast Smith observed in that room is just staggering. He noted that 10 men working together in a small manufactory could crank out, get this, upwards of 48,000 pins in a single day. If those exact same men hadn't been trained in this specific setup and tried to work completely separately, they wouldn't have even made 20 each. Honestly, they might have struggled to make a single pin in a day.
How is that even possible? Well, it brilliantly illustrates how a simple object is actually a massive orchestration of distinct operations. Making a pin is divided into something like 18 different steps. One guy draws the wire, another straightens it, a third cuts it, a fourth points it. You get the idea. By shrinking every person's job down to one simple, repetitive operation, you save an immense amount of time that's usually lost just switching between tasks. Plus, the workers get insanely fast and dexterous at their one specific job.
And here's the kicker. This hyperfocus, it's a breeding ground for innovation. There's this amazing historical anecdote in the text about early steam engines, which they called fire engines back then. There was a boy whose entire job was to constantly open and shut the valve between the boiler and the cylinder. Well, this kid just wanted to save himself some effort so he could go play with his friends. So he took a string and tied the handle of his valve to another moving part of the machine. Boom, it opened and shut automatically. Completely by accident, just trying to get some playtime, he revolutionized the entire machine.
Which brings us to part 2, driven by self-interest. Okay, so we see how powerful this system is, but we have to ask the psychological question, right? Why do people specialize and trade with each other in the first place?
Smith gives us the answer in what is probably his most iconic quote. It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest. This is huge because it reframes self-love. It's not about malicious greed, it's a remarkably practical, human cooperative tool. In a civilized society, we constantly need the help of others. But instead of begging for charity like a puppy fawning over its master, we appeal to their advantage. We offer them exactly what they want so we can get exactly what we want. It's a win-win.
What's really wild is that this deep-seated urge to barter is actually what creates our diverse talents. Think about a highly educated pompous philosopher and a common street porter. By nature, as kids, they were probably remarkably similar. It's merely habit, custom, education, and our natural disposition to trade that pushes them into totally different adult professions. The porter specializes in heavy lifting, the philosopher in deep speculation, and then they bring the fruits of those talents to the market to trade.
Let's zoom out a bit for part 3, expanding the market. So we've got this magnificent engine of divided labor. But it has a catch. It's not limitless. It is strictly capped by geography and the actual size of the market.
To put that into perspective, imagine you need to haul 200 tons of goods from London to Edinburgh. If you do that over land, it's going to take 50 massive wagons, 100 men, and literally 400 horses. Now, take that exact same cargo and put it on the water. It takes one ship and maybe 6 to 8 men. That massive difference instantly explains why early civilizations like those in Egypt didn't thrive in inland deserts, but naturally exploded around navigable waters like the Mediterranean and the Nile. Water essentially turns the whole world into your market.
All right, part 4, the invention of money. As these water routes open up and regional markets expand, society runs headfirst into a systemic roadblock. We desperately need a universal tool to grease the wheels of all this commerce.
Because here is the fatal flaw of early bartering. Economists call it the double coincidence of wants. Imagine the butcher has some extra meat and the baker really wants it. Awesome, right? But wait, the butcher already has plenty of bread. He doesn't want the baker's bread. Trade completely freezes.
They are totally stuck. Every smart person realized they needed to hold on to a commodity that absolutely no one would refuse.
Before coins came along, people used a fascinating and, frankly, extremely inconvenient variety of stuff. Back in ancient times, they used cattle. Homer actually tells us that an ancient suit of armor cost 9 oxen. 9 whole oxen. In Abyssinia, it was salt. In Newfoundland, dried cod. In Virginia, tobacco. There was even a Scottish village where a guy could buy bread from the baker using iron nails. But try dividing a living, breathing ox in half to buy a tiny pinch of salt, and you quickly see why this system was a nightmare.
So society naturally evolved. We shifted over to metals, iron, copper, gold, silver, because they're wonderfully durable and, crucially, you can divide them up and melt them back together without losing anything. But raw metals still had problems. You had the tedious hassle of weighing it every single time and the really difficult chemical process of assaying it to make sure nobody was slipping in cheap metals to defraud you. To stop those gross scams, nations stepped in and created public mints. They slapped official stamps on the metal to guarantee the weight and purity, and boom, that is the exact origin of coined money.
Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. Part 5, real value versus nominal price. Now that we have money in our pockets, we have to look at the big philosophical macro level. What actually is wealth?
And this is the direct answer to that opening paradox I gave you. The word value actually has two completely different meanings. Water has immense value in use. It sustains your life, but almost zero value in exchange, meaning you can't really buy anything with a bucket of water. But a diamond is utterly useless for sustaining life, so it has zero value in use. Yet it commands a massive value in exchange.
You see, the money, whether it's copper, silver, or gold, is just a nominal illusion. As Smith points out, the real price of everything, the original currency paid for all the wealth in the world, is human labor. The true cost of anything to the person who wants it is the toil and trouble required to get it. Wealth is, quite simply, power. It's the power to command the labor of other people.
Because think about it, gold and silver are actually terrible ways to measure wealth over the long haul. Their value bounces all over the place. When abundant new mines were discovered in America, the value of gold and silver in Europe plummeted to a third of what it had been. On top of that, throughout history, greedy princes and sovereigns have constantly and secretly diluted the purity of their own coins just to cheat their creditors. Over centuries, the nominal price of things becomes completely meaningless.
But you know what doesn't fluctuate? The human toll. Regardless of what era we're in, whether they just found a new gold mine or a king just debased the currency, a worker is always trading away the exact same portion of their ease, their liberty, and their happiness. Because that human sacrifice is the only constant, human labor is the ultimate non-varying standard of value in all of economics. It's the invisible gear turning the whole shebang.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought that kind of turns your bank account upside down. Every dollar you possess isn't just a piece of paper or a digital number. It is deeply human stored potential. It is the precise measurement of how much of another person's ease, liberty, and toil you currently have the power to command. When you realize that, I promise you, you will never look at the gears of human prosperity the same way again.